Tonight, accusations abound. An American journalist killed in Israel threatens even more clashes between Israeli forces and Palestinian terrorists.
It's a brutal murder. It's assassination.
Plus, questions over a conflict of interest as a new White House press secretary makes history.
She will be the first Black woman, the first out LGBTQ+ person to serve in this role.
And into the metaverse.
We're going to church, unlike you've ever seen it before.
Going with our own John JESSUP to a different kind of church service. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. A Palestinian-American journalist killed in the West Bank. Good evening in Washington, D.C. I'm Jenna Browder. Tonight, that slaying threatens to lead to more clashes between the Israeli forces and Palestinian terrorists. A shocking new video shows Israeli police striking mourners carrying the casket of journalist Shireen Abu Akleh during a funeral procession. Pallbearers nearly dropping the casket amid the clashes. Meanwhile, Israel is still investigating accusations into her death. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has our top story.
Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh was laid to rest in the Greek Catholic cemetery on Mount Zion in Jerusalem. Church bells rang out as thousands of mourners gathered in Jerusalem's Old City and joined the funeral procession of the woman now hailed as a Palestinian hero and martyr. The hours-long live feed broadcast scathing commentary against Israel and showed Israeli police beating pallbearers. Earlier, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said the Palestinian Authority has rejected the idea of a joint investigation and refuses access to the basic findings of the autopsy.
I therefore reiterate my expectation of an open, transparent, and full cooperation of the findings. And I also expect the Palestinian Authority not to take any steps to disrupt the investigation or to contaminate the investigation process in a way that we will not be able to reach the truth.
At a memorial service in Ramallah, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas gave his reasons for not cooperating with any investigation into Shireen Abu Akleh's death.
We point out that we have refused and rejected the joint investigation with the Israeli authorities because they are the ones who committed the crime and because we do not trust them, and we will immediately go to the International Criminal Court to prosecute the criminals.
The IDF released a statement during the funeral saying there were two possibilities. First, hundreds of bullets were fired by Palestinian gunmen from a number of locations, making this a possible source of the gunfire that hit and killed her. The second possibility is that during the exchange of fire between the Palestinian gunmen and IDF soldiers, Ms. Abu Akleh, who was near the Palestinian gunmen from behind, was hit by the soldiers' fire toward the Palestinian gunmen. Shireen was a well-known and well-respected Palestinian reporter for the Arabic-language Al Jazeera channel. She was also a U.S. citizen. Shireen and other journalists were covering an Israeli raid at the Jenin Palestinian refugee camp when she was shot in the head and died. Bennett's spokesperson noted that the Palestinian Forensic Medicine Institute had publicly stated that the results of the autopsy were inconclusive.
Without any concrete evidence, hasty accusations against Israel that are being made right now are misleading and irresponsible.
The incident comes against the backdrop of a surge in terror attacks over the last 2 months, where 19 Israelis have been murdered. Many of the terrorists have come from the area of Jenin, prompting numerous raids to arrest them. Also on the same day as the funeral, an Israeli soldier was killed in Jenin during an arrest operation on Friday.
In Jenin, historically, there is deep influence of Islamic Jihad, and they are getting money from Iran.
Pinchas Imbari from the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs says the terror group has stepped in to help Hamas mobilize terrorism in the West Bank.
Because this is the agenda of Hamas. So they put plenty of resources to start terrorism from the West Bank.
Immediately following the fatal raid, the Palestinian Authority vowed to go to The Hague and call for an investigation. Imbari says the Palestinian Authority and President Abbas are using Shireen's death as a way back into the international limelight.
the PA must be relevant. The PA is not relevant anymore. Israel made peace with the Arab countries. They don't need the Palestinians anymore. The Arabs stopped to finance the PA. Only Israel is now financing the PA.
Israel is also concerned that the Palestinians could use the incident to incite more trouble. But then it says Israel will continue to operate to cut off the current wave of terrorism. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And back here at home, the abortion battle rages on. Today, a warning from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi from the steps of the U.S. Capitol.
Make no mistake, once Republicans shred long-standing precedent and privacy rights, they intend to wage an all-out assault on more of our rights, including access to contraception.
At a press conference, Pelosi and fellow Democrats again railing against the Supreme Court's possible overturning of Roe v. Wade. It comes a day after the 9 justices met behind closed doors for the first time since that draft leaked opinion was made public. This week, Democrats failed in their attempt to advance a bill that would have codified abortion rights into federal law. And with that, let's bring in Julia Manchester, political reporter with The Hill. Julia, good to see you. Happy Friday. So the Supreme Court says it will be releasing some opinions on Monday. Could we see an advanced release of this Dobbs decision, which brought about all of this debate on Roe?
You know, I don't think we will. However, it's possible. It seemed like the Supreme Court was really set to release that decision on Dobbs sometime in June or closer to the summer. However, I think there is a concern among those on the right and maybe some anti-abortion activists that the leak of this decision or the draft decision could somehow push the Supreme Court in a different direction on that ruling due to the public outcry it's received. So we'll have to see really what happens, but we remember this has to be timed with, or it's going to be timed regardless with the midterm elections this year. So I think there's a lot of political consideration to be taken into account when it comes to whenever this decision is released.
Yeah, speaking of the midterms, the Biden administration set to end the Trump-era Title 42 policy later this month. This, of course, is the policy that allows the U.S. to reject asylum seekers at the border over COVID-19 concerns. You know, that's something even some Democrats, including Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, are pushing back against. Julia, how heavy is the immigration crisis going to hang over the November midterms?
Well, Republicans will certainly want to make it a heavy issue to hang over the November midterms. You have vulnerable Democrats in the Senate like Mark Kelly, Maggie Hassan, who's a senator from New Hampshire, a Democrat also up for re-election, and also some other Democratic lawmakers closer to the border like Congressman Henry Cuellar, who's facing a tough primary race right now, very much trying to urge the Biden administration to preserve Title 42 or at least come out with some sort of plan to replace it. But I think we can be certain that Republicans are going to use this decision from the Biden administration to be hit against Democrats really going forward. You know, Republicans are trying to very much push this issue of migrants flowing over the southern border, Border Patrol not being in control enough of the situation to hit Democrats. And it seems like, according to polling that has been released and really how much Republicans have lasered in on this issue, that there could be some success with Republicans in this strategy.
All right, Julia Manchester, we will leave it there. Always good to have you on a Friday. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Well, a new era for the White House press shop. Today, Press Secretary Jen Psaki held her final briefing. Her replacement, Jean-Pierre, the first Black person to hold this key position and the first LGBTQ+ person. The president's groundbreaking choice has created a horde of controversy, especially among the pro-Israel community. CBN's Tara Merchner reports.
It's the press secretary's job to speak for the White House, dispense news, and try to manage the media. President Biden's latest pick, however, is making headlines herself.
This is a historic moment, and it's not lost on me.
A former chief of staff to Kamala Harris, Jean-Pierre has been promoted in what's regarded as the most diverse administration in U.S. history.
She will be the first Black woman, the first out LGBTQ plus person to serve in this role. She will give a voice to so many.
Born to Haitian parents and raised in Queens, Jean-Pierre has a long career in Democratic communications. She succeeds Jen Psaki, who's taking an on-air role at MSNBC. In a statement, the president writes, Karine brings the experience, talent, and integrity needed for this difficult job. One that also comes at a difficult time for the administration. A veteran of 2 presidential campaigns, the 44-year-old now takes on the challenge of conveying the administration's message as midterm elections loom.
But we're walking around like, woe is me.
And President Biden's popularity plummets.
I just appreciate this time and this moment, and I hope that I make people proud.
Jean-Pierre is aware of the media's impact on politics, often using it in her past role as a Democratic strategist.
Donald Trump doesn't really care about the country.
While receiving wide praise for the high-profile position, not everyone is embracing President Biden's pick. Former Ambassador David Friedman tweeting, amidst all the celebration of Biden's new press secretary checking multiple boxes in identity politics, the mainstream media forgot to mention that she hates Israel.
Karine Jean-Pierre has a track record of making anti-Israel statements. As an example, she's accused Israel of committing war crimes, quote unquote.
In 2019, as a spokesperson for MoveOn.org, Jean-Pierre wrote a scathing op-ed in Newsweek, endorsing the boycott of a historically bipartisan group, which advocates for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship.
She's also accused the America-Israel Political Action Committee, AIPAC, of indulging in racism and Islamophobia. One wonders is whether she'll be capable of being objective.
Critics also charge Jean-Pierre's relationship with CNN anchor Suzanne Malveaux is a conflict of interest in this position, though a similar arrangement happened during the Obama administration with Press Secretary Jay Carney. CNN has sidelined Malveaux from covering politics and the White House for now.
Should it matter here? No, it should not matter, but it does. And why does it matter? Because we're in a climate right now, a political climate and a media climate that is so polarized that the last thing you want is any sort of appearance of conflict of interest.
Or a history of pushing disinformation, as critics point to tweets like this one sent shortly after Donald Trump won the 2016 presidential election, which she called stolen. She made a similar claim regarding Stacey Abrams following the 2018 Georgia governor's race.
There needs to be a measure of credibility, and if you've been on the record declaring such things as Stacey Abrams is the secret winner of the 2018 Georgia gubernatorial race, that credibility is very severely and perhaps irreparably strained.
Press secretaries have the power to shape presidential agenda and public perception. Jean-Pierre's supporters insist she'll use the power of her post wisely. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Tara. And we reached out to Jean-Pierre and the White House for the story, but so far have not heard back. Well, as Russia's war against Ukraine drags on, refugees fleeing the country now number over 6 million. How CBN is helping. Welcome back. As Russia's war with Ukraine rages on, clashes in the war-torn country are signaling a prolonged war that could stretch into next year. The UN says more than 6 million Ukrainians have now fled the country, with well over 3 million going to Poland. When those refugees cross over the border into Poland, CBN is there to help them, providing food, a bed, and the hope of the gospel.
To be here in this house today with Orphans Promise, Operation Blessing, the CBN family of ministries, and see the impact that we're able to have here in Warsaw in Poland is mind-blowing. We're able to feed, house, bring the gospel through the local church and our partnerships, but be able to be the hands and feet, hold these women's hands, these children's hands, as they've come across the border, not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, not knowing where they're coming to, but they're able to be welcomed here. They have a bed, they have food, but they also have fellowship. We're able to share the gospel. These people coming over, they want to know God. They've been crying out to him while they're in Ukraine, and now they're able to get here. And through our partnerships with the local church, there are so many of them accepting Jesus. There's so many of them being baptized in bathtubs. The stories I could spend all day telling you. It is an honor and a blessing to be here and hear what is going on, but it is thanks to you. We could not be standing here right now helping these refugees if it wasn't for you. So please, would you think about how you can help, how you can partner with us, because the need is greater. There are hundreds of thousands of refugees in this city alone. We can do it with your help. Thank you.
And you can go to ob.com for more on how to help. When we come back, a church service like you've never seen. John Jessup takes us to church in the metaverse. Well, it's not your usual church service. It's not even your usual live stream service. The pandemic has forced people to think outside the box and into the metaverse. John Jessup brings us the story.
You've probably heard about the metaverse, but what is it and how do you get there? We're about to show you how it all works using a setting you're probably familiar with. We're going to church, unlike you've ever seen it before. It may look like animation, but the characters on your screen aren't cartoon pixels playing church. They represent real people worshiping in the world of virtual reality.
Bless everyone here with whatever they're going through. And in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
This is Church in the Metaverse, where users in the real world wear VR headsets to guide their avatar selves into a simulated immersive experience. And it's gaining interest among the curious and the faithful.
We found that the environment was just a rich environment for ministry.
Oklahoma-based Life Church now has a campus in the Metaverse to add to its 40 other locations.
We always say if we're going to reach people that no one else is reaching, we're going to have to do some things that no one else is doing. That is really just more of our DNA in general, and that when there's new technologies and new platforms and all the new attention that the metaverse is getting today, we want to be present and we want to learn and understand how we can do ministry in it.
Hey, are you coming?
Yeah, just got to find something to wear.
Facebook's dive into the digital dimension helped it gain attraction and legitimacy, with major players from gaming,
some call it skill,
fashion,
welcome semblance, the fashion's entry to the metaverse,
and even healthcare lining up to unleash its potential. Last year, people dropped more than $500 million to get a piece of the metaverse's real estate. While some see it as a revenue generator, a growing number of faith leaders believe it's just another platform to promote the gospel.
There has been this shift of this kind of like fringe technology, fringe experience that's now starting to become mainstream.
DJ Soto launched VR Church in 2016 and predicts a place in the metaverse will soon become just as common as a church's website and social media are today.
By 2030, your main experience for your church will be in the metaverse.
He points to another major benefit.
When you start to experience church in the metaverse, you start to see this whole world of forgotten people who want to be part of the spiritual community, but maybe they don't have a way to be connected to one.
That's what hit home for Alina Delp.
For probably the first couple, 2 or 3 services, I just cried.
A former flight attendant and thrill seeker, she's been confined to her home due to a rare neurovascular condition. For her, streaming had its limitations.
You could watch others be part of the church, but you couldn't be part of the church. And if anything, that just saddened me.
Discovering VR Church gave her a sense of community, initially volunteering as a greeter, then leading a small group. After enrolling in seminary, Alina is now part of the pastoral team, ministering to people from all over the world and from all walks of life.
In VR, people are very open about where they are There's not the facade. They don't put on their Sunday best and pretend that everybody's a grade A student and life is wonderful. And but they're really honest about what's happening in their lives, which allows us to pastor better.
Skeptics question everything from safety in the virtual reality movement to sound theology to justify its use. Pastor Bobby Grunwald, who developed the YouVersion Bible app, believes the debate over virtual versus physical boils down to reaching people where they are.
We are for meeting in buildings. We're big proponents of it. We have a multi-site church. We meet in 39 different locations physically. We're part of local communities, but we also feel like we have these tools available today that have never been available before in human history that allow us and give us the opportunity to connect and reach people that we otherwise would not be able to reach.
Soto counters that the metaverse is smart use of technology, like when the late Billy Graham went on radio and TV to evangelize the masses.
We're connecting with people digitally, virtually, over airways, if you will. And the relationships and the community and the connections, the salvation and the discipleship is just as powerful as anything that we've seen in the past.
For Life Church, church in the metaverse isn't about choosing the physical over the virtual. It's about the mandate to reach people with the gospel and one of their mantras, which is to do anything short of sin to reach people who don't know Christ. And to reach people no one is reaching, they'll have to do things no one is doing. John Jessup, CBN News, Oklahoma City.
Very interesting. Great reporting, John. And still ahead, the National Cathedral marks a grim milestone in the fight against COVID-19. Finally tonight, a sobering milestone for the United States. This week, the nation reached more than 1 million COVID-19 deaths. In Washington, D.C., the National Cathedral marked the devastating toll by ringing its bell 1,000 times. And tonight, we close out our week by honoring those lives lost.